Get back to the kitchen where you belong! Vivian Whitmore's diamond ring sliced across Margaret Thompson's cheek. The champagne flute shattered against marble, crystal fragments bouncing across designer heels. Margaret's leather portfolio burst open, her business card sliding under Louboutin shoes like confetti. Blood dripped onto her navy Armani blazer. The Whitmore Foundation Gala stopped breathing. 200 Manhattan elite lifted their phones, capturing the moment a billionaire's wife struck down a black woman at the dessert station. Ashley Whitmore's Instagram Live exploded 15,000 viewers, witnessing pure humiliation in real time. Margaret had simply introduced herself, mentioned tomorrow's partnership announcement. Instead, she became the evening's entertainment for strangers hungry for drama. Another addition to the countless touching stories and real-life stories that expose how black stories unfold behind closed doors. The security cameras rolled silently overhead. Have you ever been so publicly destroyed that your entire identity shattered in one moment? 9:47 p.m. Auction starts in 10 minutes. Security! This woman is harassing our donors. Vivian Whitmore's voice cut through Chopin's piano melody. Her manicured finger pointed at Margaret like a weapon. Bradley Whitmore, 28 and soft from trust fund living, smirked from behind his whiskey tumbler. Mom, she's probably here for cleanup duty anyway. The caterers always get confused about dress code. Laughter rippled through nearby guests. Phones emerged from Hermes clutches and Brioni jacket pockets. The feeding frenzy began. Ashley Whitmore held her iPhone at arm's length, diamond bracelet catching the chandelier light. Her glossy lips moved rapidly into the camera. OMG, guys! We have literal staff drama happening at tonight's charity event. Some random woman is like totally harassing my mom right now. The viewer count climbed. 15,000. 18,000. 22,000. This is so awkward but also kind of hilarious. Rich people problems, am I right? Margaret remained motionless. Blood continued its slow journey down her cheek, staining the collar of her $2,400 blazer. Her left hand rested calmly on her leather portfolio while her right touched the cut with surgical precision. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us. Two security guards approached, hands hovering near zip-tie restraints. Their black uniforms bore the Whitmore Industries logo, a golden W wrapped in laurel leaves. The crowd pressed closer. Someone whispered, "Is she armed?" Another voice, "Call the police." A third, "Get her out before the auction starts." Margaret's phone buzzed against her hip. Then again. The screen lit up through her purse. Bloomberg Terminal Alert. THMP shares plus 12% after-hours trading. She reached for her portfolio with deliberate slowness. The leather was butter-soft, Italian-made, monogrammed with initials most people in this room wouldn't recognize. Her movements were precise, controlled, like a surgeon selecting the right instrument. A first-class Emirates ticket slipped from the portfolio's outer pocket. Dubai to JFK. Yesterday's date clearly visible. Seat 2A. The golden Emirates logo caught the light. Look, she's reaching for something. Bradley stepped backward, nearly spilling his drink. A Goldman Sachs signature card fell next, platinum edges gleaming. The kind of banking card that required a 7-figure minimum balance and personal relationship manager. Margaret's fingers found what they were looking for. She paused, feeling the weight of the document that would change everything. Not yet. Let them dig their graves deeper. You people never learn, do you? Vivian's voice grew shriller. We open our home, our foundation, our hearts to charity, and this is what happens. Some entitled woman thinks she can just walk in here and... Vivian! The voice belonged to Eleanor Chen, wife of tech entrepreneur Jason Chen. Her tone carried warning. Maybe we should... Should what, Eleanor? Let her disrupt our entire evening? The auction starts in 7 minutes. We're raising money for underprivileged children, and she's making it about herself. Jason Chen stepped forward, his face pale under the crystal lighting. He was younger than most guests, 42, his fortune built on algorithmic trading platforms. His eyes fixed on Margaret with growing recognition. "Wait a minute, I think I know." "Jason, don't be dramatic." Bradley waved him off. "She's obviously some kind of activist or blogger trying to make a scene. They do this at every high-profile event now. It's pathetic, really." Ashley's phone screen showed 31,000 viewers. Comments flooded the live stream. "Drag her out!" "Why is security so slow?" "Rich people are literally insane." "This woman looks familiar." "Someone call the cops." Margaret's second phone buzzed. This one was different. A secure device issued to Fortune 500 CEOs. The caller ID read, Richard Whitmore Sr., Chairman and CEO. She declined the call. The hotel manager appeared, a thin man in an expensive suit who moved with practiced diplomacy. His eyes darted between the growing crowd and the woman at its center. "Mrs. Whitmore, perhaps we could handle this more privately?" "Privately?" Vivian's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "She assaulted me first. Look at my ring, there's blood on it. This is assault, harassment, probably extortion." The security guards moved closer. Their earpieces crackled with instructions from somewhere deeper in the building. Margaret could see additional personnel positioning themselves near the exits. "Ma'am," the larger guard said, his voice professionally neutral. "We need you to come with us voluntarily, or we'll have to use alternative measures." Margaret smiled. It was a small expression, barely visible, but it contained depths that no one in this room understood yet. She looked at her Patek Philippe watch, a limited edition piece that cost more than most people's cars. 9:49 p.m. "I have a question for you, Mrs. Whitmore." Margaret's voice was calm, conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. "Do you know what your husband was doing yesterday in Dubai?" Vivian's face flushed deeper. "My husband's business is none of your concern, because I do." Margaret's fingers tightened on her portfolio. "I know exactly where he was, who he met with, and what contracts he signed." The room grew quieter. Even Ashley's narration faltered. "I know about the AI integration project, the $1.2 billion partnership, the exclusive 3-year deal that will save Whitmore Industries from technological obsolescence." Vivian's mouth opened, then closed. "I know about the 23% market share you're hemorrhaging to competitors, the Amazon contract you're about to lose, the 12,000 jobs hanging in the balance." Margaret's phone buzzed again. Richard Whitmore Sr., still trying to reach someone he couldn't know, was standing in his wife's crosshairs. 9:50 p.m. Auction in 7 minutes. The crowd pressed closer, sensing something shifting. Ashley's viewer count hit 38,000. Jason Chen looked like he'd seen a ghost. Margaret opened her portfolio. 9:50 p.m. Auction in 7 minutes. The hotel manager's earpiece crackled. His face tightened as he received instructions from corporate. "Mrs. Whitmore, we have protocols for situations like this. Perhaps we should escort the young lady out quietly before—" "Young lady?" Vivian's voice climbed an octave. "This woman attacked me. Look at my hand." She held up her diamond ring, now smeared with Margaret's blood. "I want her arrested for assault." Ashley's phone screen exploded with notifications. Her Instagram Live had jumped to 45,000 viewers, with comments flooding faster than she could read them. World star moment. Karen versus real life. This lady seems too calm. Why does she look familiar? Someone Google her. Bradley pulled out his own phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm calling the police." This has gone far enough. His trust fund confidence wavered as he struggled to maintain authority over a situation spinning beyond his control. Margaret checked her watch again. The Patek Philippe's diamond markers caught the light. 9:51 p.m. "Before you make that call," Margaret said, her voice carrying across the growing crowd. "You might want to ask your mother why she's really so upset." "Excuse me?" Vivian stepped closer, her Botoxed face rigid with fury. "You heard me the first time, Mrs. Whitmore in the restaurant. Last month. The saint. Regis." The blood drained from Vivian's face. Margaret continued, her tone never changing from conversational calm. "Table 12. You were with the Pemberton Foundation Board, discussing their diversity initiative." Silence spread through the crowd like spilled wine. "You said, and I quote, 'We don't need more of them in leadership positions. They're not equipped for real responsibility. It's basic biology.'" Vivian's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water. Jason Chen stepped forward, his recognition finally crystallizing. "Jesus Christ. You're Margaret Thompson. You're the CEO of—" "Jason, don't." His wife Eleanor grabbed his arm, sensing the dangerous undercurrents flowing through the room, but Jason shook her off. "This is insane. Do you people have any idea who you're talking to?" 9:52 p.m. Auction in 5 minutes. The security guards looked confused, glancing between their orders and the growing uncertainty in the crowd. Their supervisor's voice buzzed through their earpieces. "Stand by. Situation developing." Ashley's viewer count hit 52,000. The comments section had become a battlefield. "Google says she's a CEO?" "Thompson Analytics, look it up." "Oh shit, this lady runs a billion-dollar company." "Plot twist incoming. The Whitmores are about to get owned." But other voices pushed back. "She's still trespassing." "Rich people defending rich people. Doesn't matter who she is. Security should have removed her already." Margaret's secure phone buzzed again. This time she glanced at it. The screen showed 3 missed calls from Richard Whitmore Sr., 2 from her chief legal counsel, and 1 from Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management. The crowd pressed closer, phones held high like digital torches. Margaret could see herself reflected in dozens of screens, her image multiplied and broadcast to tens of thousands of strangers. The cut on her cheek had stopped bleeding, but the stain on her blazer told the story. "I don't know what game you're playing," Vivian hissed, "but this is my foundation, my gala, my guests. Security!" The larger guard moved forward, his hand finally touching Margaret's elbow. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me now." Margaret looked down at his hand, then up at his face. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Something in her voice made him hesitate. "Do you know what a morality clause is, officer?" The guard blinked. "Ma'am?" "It's a provision in business contracts. Very common in partnerships involving public companies. It allows either party to terminate the agreement if the other party engages in conduct that could damage their reputation." Bradley stepped forward, emboldened by the guard's presence. "What are you talking about?" "What contracts? You're obviously having some kind of breakdown." Margaret's phone buzzed again. This time she answered. "Richard." Her voice carried clearly across the silent room. "I'm at your wife's charity gala." The crowd strained to hear the other side of the conversation, but Margaret had positioned the phone so only she could hear Richard Whitmore's increasingly frantic voice. "No, Richard, I haven't started the auction yet." Margaret's eyes never left Vivian's face. "Actually, I'm having an interesting conversation with your family about corporate partnerships and public conduct." Vivian lurched forward. "Give me that phone!" But the security guard, now thoroughly confused about protocols, stepped between them. 9:53 p.m., auction in 4 minutes. Ashley's Instagram Live had become a phenomenon. 58,000 viewers and climbing. Screenshots were already spreading across Twitter and TikTok. # Whitmore Gala and # Charity Drama were trending in real time. The hotel manager's phone rang, then Bradley's, then Ashley's. The Whitmore Industries crisis management team was awakening, alerted by social media monitoring algorithms. Margaret ended her call with Richard. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crack the marble floor. Here's what's going to happen, Margaret said, finally opening her portfolio fully. I'm going to show you something, and then you're going to make a choice. Her fingers found the document she'd been protecting. 27 pages of legal text, printed on Whitmore Industries letterhead, bound in blue legal backing. Mrs. Whitmore, you have approximately 3 minutes to decide whether your family values are more important than your family fortune. The crowd surged closer. Someone in the back shouted, "What is it?" "What does it say?" Margaret held the contract against her chest, keeping its contents hidden. "It's a partnership agreement, signed yesterday in Dubai by your husband, worth $1.2 billion over 3 years. Vivian's face went white as her pearl necklace. "It has what lawyers call a reputation clause. Very standard in deals of this magnitude. It protects both parties from embarrassing conduct." The security guard stepped back as if the document were radioactive. Margaret looked at her watch one final time. 9:54 p.m. "The auction starts in 3 minutes, Mrs. Whitmore. But this conversation ends now." She held up the contract, turning it so the crowd could see the Whitmore Industries seal embossed in gold on the cover page. "The question is, do you want to know what your husband promised me? Or do you want to keep pretending you have power over someone whose signature is worth more than this entire foundation?" Ashley's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the marble. Her Instagram Live was still running, now broadcasting to 63,000 viewers, watching a billionaire family realize they had gravely miscalculated. The crystal chandeliers seemed to dim as Margaret prepared to reveal exactly who held the real power in the room. 9:54 p.m. Auction in 3 minutes. Margaret turned the contract toward the crowd. The gold Whitmore Industries seal caught every camera flash, every phone light, every chandelier reflection. 27 pages of legal text that would redefine everything these people thought they knew about power. "Partnership agreement," she read from the cover page, her voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "Whitmore Industries and Thomson Analytics. Exclusive 3-year artificial intelligence integration contract." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Signed yesterday, February 15th, 2025, in Dubai, by Richard Whitmore Sr., Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Industries." Vivian Whitmore's pearls seemed to tighten around her throat. Margaret flipped to page 1. Total contract value, $1.2 billion, payable in quarterly installments over 36 months. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones tilted closer, trying to capture the text that was reshaping their understanding of the evening's entertainment. Thomson Analytics will provide comprehensive AI infrastructure, predictive modeling systems, and algorithmic optimization for all Whitmore Industries operations across 17 countries. Bradley's whiskey glass slipped from his fingers. The crystal exploded against marble, amber liquid spreading like blood across white stone. Page 12. Margaret's finger traced the legal text with surgical precision. Exclusivity clause. Whitmore Industries agrees to work solely with Thomson Analytics for all artificial intelligence needs. No competing partnerships, no alternative vendors, no backdoor negotiations with Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. Ashley's Instagram Live viewer count had frozen at 67,000, but the comment section moved so fast it became a blur of exclamation points and capital letters. Page 18. Margaret looked directly at Vivian. Termination conditions. Either party may void this agreement immediately upon evidence of conduct that materially damages the reputation of the partnership. The silence was so complete that the piano in the corner seemed loud by comparison. Jason Chen broke first. "Holy shit!" The words escaped before his wife could stop him. "You're Margaret Thompson. The Margaret Thompson. From the Forbes cover last year." Recognition spread through the crowd like wildfire. Whispers became murmurs, became urgent conversations as people pulled out phones to Google the woman they'd watched being assaulted. Thomson Analytics. The AI company that revolutionized. She's worth more than... Oh my God, what have we done? Margaret closed the contract and held it against her chest. Mrs. Whitmore, I came here tonight to discuss tomorrow's press announcement with your husband. A simple courtesy call to coordinate our public statements. Vivian's face had gone beyond pale into something approaching translucent. Instead, I found myself starring in your daughter's social media content. 67,000 people watched you assault the CEO of the company that your husband's business depends on for survival. The security guards stepped backward as if Margaret had become radioactive. You see, Mrs. Whitmore, while you were planning charity auctions, I was in Dubai signing the contract that saves your family fortune. While you were choosing tonight's diamonds, I was negotiating the deal that preserves 12,000 Whitmore Industries jobs. Margaret's secure phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen and smiled, an expression that contained depths of satisfaction no one in this room could fully comprehend. That's my legal team. They've been watching Ashley's live stream. She gestured toward the young woman, who stood frozen with her phone still recording. 67,000 witnesses to what lawyers call actionable discrimination and assault. The hotel manager's earpiece crackled urgently. His face went white as he received new instructions from corporate headquarters. Someone had finally Googled Margaret Thompson. Ma'am, he stammered, approaching with hands raised in surrender. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. If there's anything we can do, there is. Margaret's voice cut through his panic. You can step aside. She walked past him, past the security guards, past the frozen crowd of Manhattan's elite. Her heels clicked on marble as she approached the auction podium at the far end of the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying easily across the space. My name is Margaret Thompson. I'm the founder and CEO of Thomson Analytics. Perhaps you've heard of us. Murmurs of recognition rippled through the crowd. Thomson Analytics powered the artificial intelligence systems for 67% of Fortune 100 companies. Their algorithms predicted market movements, optimized supply chains, and generated billions in efficiency savings. Yesterday, I signed a partnership agreement with Whitmore Industries. It's the largest AI integration contract in corporate history. It was scheduled to be announced tomorrow morning at a joint press conference. Margaret held up the contract, its blue backing visible to every phone camera in the room. This agreement contains what's called a morality clause. It's quite comprehensive. Page 23 if you're following along. She opened the document and found the relevant section. Any conduct by principals, executives, or family members that brings material reputational harm to either party shall constitute grounds for immediate contract termination. The ballroom was so quiet that the building's air conditioning seemed deafening. Mrs. Whitmore, your assault on me was broadcast live to 67,000 viewers. It's been recorded, screenshotted, and shared across every social media platform. By tomorrow morning, it will have millions of views. Margaret closed the contract and looked directly at Vivian, who seemed to be shrinking inside her Chanel gown. The question now is simple. Do you think striking the CEO of your husband's most important business partner constitutes material, reputational harm? Bradley found his voice first, though it came out as a croak. You can't. It's not legal. Actually, it's extremely legal. Page 24 outlines the termination process. It requires only written notice and a statement of cause. Margaret reached into her portfolio and withdrew a single sheet of letterhead. My legal team prepared this while I was being assaulted. She held up the termination letter, already signed and dated. Mrs. Whitmore, you have approximately 1 minute to decide. public apology and mandatory sensitivity training for your entire family, or I terminate a $1.2 billion contract and let your husband explain to his board why Whitmore Industries just lost its future. Ashley's phone finally slipped from her nerveless fingers, ending the live stream that had just destroyed her family's empire. The auction bell chimed 10 p.m. But the only bidding happening now was for Margaret Thompson's mercy. 10 p.m. The auction that never was. Margaret Thompson stood at the podium where Manhattan's elite had planned to bid on art and tax deductions. Instead, they witnessed a different kind of auction one where reputation, legacy, and $1.2 billion hung in the balance. Let me share some numbers with you, Mrs. Whitmore Margaret's voice carried the calm authority of someone who had spent 15 years building corporate empires. Thomson Analytics generated $847 million in revenue last year. We serve 43% of Fortune 500 companies. Our AI systems process 2.3 trillion data points daily. She opened her portfolio and withdrew a tablet, its screen illuminating precise financial projections. Whitmore Industries, by contrast, lost 23% market share in the past 18 months. Your manufacturing division operates on technology that's 7 years behind industry standard. Your logistics algorithms are so outdated that Amazon terminated their partnership last quarter. Vivian Whitmore gripped her pearl necklace as if it could anchor her to solid ground. The Amazon contract was worth $417 million annually. Margaret's finger traced numbers on her tablet screen. Without AI modernization, you'll lose the Walmart partnership next. That's another $289 million. Then Target, Costco, and every major retailer who demands real-time inventory optimization. Bradley stepped forward on unsteady legs. You can't know our internal financials. That's proprietary .. Your husband hired Thomson Analytics to conduct a comprehensive audit before signing our partnership. Margaret's smile contained no warmth. I know your debt-to-equity ratio. I know your quarterly cash flow projections. I know exactly how many jobs depend on this AI integration. She turned the tablet toward the crowd, displaying a corporate organizational chart. 12,347 employees across 17 countries, from your Jakarta manufacturing plant to your Berlin design studio, all of them depending on technology upgrades that only my company can provide in time to save your government contracts. The hotel manager's phone rang, then a board member's, then another. Word was spreading through corporate networks faster than gossip through a small town. Margaret continued, her voice never losing its conversational tone. The European Union's AI compliance requirements take effect in 6 months. Without Thomson Analytics certification protocols, Whitmore Industries loses access to the entire European market. That's $1.7 billion in annual revenue. Jason Chen pushed through the crowd, his face pale with recognition of the catastrophe unfolding. Vivian, you need to apologize right now. Do you understand what you've done? Jason, stay out of this, Bradley snapped, though his voice lacked conviction. Stay out of this? Jason's laugh was sharp with disbelief. Your family just assaulted the CEO of the most important AI company in North America on live stream, while she was here as your father's business partner. Margaret checked her watch. The Patek Philippe's hands marked 10:03 p.m. Mrs. Whitmore, your husband is currently on a plane from Dubai. Flight EK201 scheduled to land at JFK at 6:47 a.m. tomorrow. He's planning to attend our joint press conference at 9 a.m. to announce the partnership that saves his company. She held up her secure phone, showing Richard Whitmore's contact information. I can call him now and explain why that press conference is canceled. I can tell him his wife's conduct triggered the morality clause that voids our agreement. I can let him know that 12,000 employees will receive termination notices because his family values discrimination over business survival. The silence was so complete that Margaret could hear champagne bubbles popping in abandoned glasses. Or, she continued, her voice softening slightly, you can make a different choice. Margaret withdrew a second document from her portfolio. This one was shorter, 3 pages on Thomson Analytics letterhead. Option 1. Mrs. Whitmore issues a public apology via the same social media channels that broadcast her assault. Ashley posts a video acknowledging the harm caused by her live stream commentary. Bradley attends sensitivity training conducted by the Southern Poverty Law Center 60 hours over 6 months. She flipped to the second page. Option 2. The Whitmore Foundation implements mandatory bias training for all board members and staff. You establish a $10 million fund for minority-owned business partnerships. You hire an external diversity consultant. My recommendation is Dr. Angela Davis from Columbia to audit your hiring and promotion practices. Vivian's mouth moved soundlessly, like a fish pulled from water. Option 3. You do all of the above, and I honor the contract that keeps your family fortune intact. Margaret's legal team had crafted the ultimatum with surgical precision. Each requirement was specific, measurable, and legally enforceable. The alternative is simple. Margaret held up the termination letter she'd prepared. I invoke Clause 23.7 of our partnership agreement. Whitmore Industries loses its only path to technological relevance. Your stock price drops 30% by market open. Your board calls an emergency meeting to discuss Richard's resignation. Bradley's phone buzzed with a call from Whitmore Industries' head of investor relations. He declined it, but 3 more calls followed immediately. The business media loves these stories, Margaret continued. CEO's wife assaults black business partner at charity Gala. It has everything: discrimination, corporate consequences, social media evidence. CNBC will lead with it tomorrow. So will the Wall Street Journal. Ashley had retrieved her phone and was staring at the notification screen with growing horror. Her Instagram post had been shared 15,000 times in the past hour. Screenshots were spreading across Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. #Whitmore Gala was trending nationally. 67,000 people watched your assault in real time, Margaret said, addressing Vivian directly. By tomorrow morning it will be millions. Every business school in America will use this as a case study in how personal prejudice destroys corporate value. Margaret's tablet chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen and smiled. That's my board of directors. They're recommending immediate contract termination and a discrimination lawsuit seeking $500 million in damages. She looked up at Vivian. I told them to wait 15 minutes for your response. The crowd pressed closer, sensing the climax of a drama that would reshape how corporate America understood the intersection of personal conduct and business consequences. Mrs. Whitmore, you have a choice to make. Margaret closed her tablet and fixed Vivian with a stare that could cut diamond. You can salvage this situation through accountability and genuine change. Or you can watch your family's century-old business empire collapse because you couldn't control your prejudice for 3 minutes. The hotel manager's earpiece crackled with urgent instructions from corporate headquarters. Someone very high up the chain had finally grasped the magnitude of what was unfolding in their ballroom. Margaret checked her watch one final time. 10:05 p.m. You have 60 seconds to decide, Mrs. Whitmore. After that, my legal team files the termination paperwork, and your husband lands tomorrow morning to discover that his wife's racism cost him everything he spent 40 years building. The crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across the marble floor, but the only light that mattered was the recording indicator on dozens of phones, documenting the moment when accountability came for American aristocracy. Vivian Whitmore opened her mouth to speak, her voice barely a whisper in the cathedral silence of consequences finally arriving. 10:06 p.m. The moment of reckoning. Vivian Whitmore's voice cracked like aged porcelain. I apologize. The words fell into silence so complete that Margaret could hear her own heartbeat. But this wasn't enough. Not after the humiliation, not after the assault, not after decades of similar moments happening to people without her leverage. Mrs. Whitmore, Your apology needs to be as public as your assault. Margaret held up Ashley's phone, which had captured everything. 67,000 people watched you strike me. They deserve to hear your acknowledgement. Ashley's hands trembled as she reactivated her Instagram Live. The viewer count climbed instantly 78,000, then 85,000. Word had spread across social media networks. People were sharing links, tagging friends, creating a digital amphitheater for accountability. Vivian stepped closer to the camera, her makeup smudged, her perfect composure shattered. My name is Vivian Whitmore. Tonight I made a terrible mistake. I assaulted Ms. Margaret Thompson based on assumptions about her race and her right to be here. Her voice grew steadier as she continued. There is no excuse for my behavior. My actions were racist, violent, and completely unacceptable. Ms. Thompson came to our foundation as a business partner, and I treated her like a criminal. Margaret watched the comments section explode with responses ranging from skepticism to support to demands for more accountability. I will be enrolling in sensitivity training immediately, Vivian continued. Our entire family will participate in educational programs about unconscious bias and privilege. We will do better. The live stream viewer count hit 95,000. Bradley stepped forward next, his trust fund confidence completely evaporated. I also apologize for my comments and assumptions. They were ignorant and harmful. I will be attending 60 hours of bias training with the Southern Poverty Law Center, as Ms. Thompson requested. Ashley lowered her phone after ending the live stream. Her face was pale, makeup streaked with tears she hadn't realized were falling. I'm sorry, too. For making entertainment out of discrimination, for not recognizing what was really happening, for being part of the problem. Margaret nodded slowly. The apologies were a start, but accountability required more than words spoken under duress. The Whitmore Foundation will implement immediate reforms, Margaret announced to the remaining crowd. Every board member and staff person will complete bias training within 90 days. You'll establish a $10 million partnership fund specifically for minority-owned businesses. She opened her tablet, displaying a detailed implementation plan her legal team had prepared. Dr. Angela Davis from Columbia University's School of Social Work will conduct quarterly audits of your hiring, promotion, and partnership practices. Her recommendations will be implemented without exception. Margaret turned to address the hotel manager, who had been frozen in corporate panic for the past 20 minutes. The Saint. Regis will also need to review its security protocols. Your staff's initial response to this situation was inadequate. Absolutely, Miss Thompson. We'll conduct a full review and implement whatever changes you recommend. The crowd began to shift as people realized the main drama was concluding. Phones lowered, whispered conversations resumed. But Margaret wasn't finished. Jason Chen. She called to the tech entrepreneur who had tried to intervene earlier. Your company builds social media monitoring tools, correct? Yes, ma'am. Sentiment analysis, trend tracking, reputation management. I want you to develop an anti-discrimination reporting app, anonymous submissions, real-time alerts, integration with HR systems. The Whitmore Foundation will be your first client and primary funder. Jason nodded eagerly. We can have a prototype ready in 6 weeks. Make it 4 weeks. Margaret's smile showed she was negotiating, not requesting. And make it comprehensive. Video upload, geolocation data, automatic legal documentation. Every incident recorded, tracked, and preserved. She turned back to Vivian, who stood surrounded by the wreckage of her social standing. Mrs. Whitmore, you'll also be making a substantial donation to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. $5 million, announced publicly, with a statement about why this gift matters. Of course, Vivian whispered. Margaret checked her watch. 10:15 p.m. She had accomplished more in 30 minutes than most discrimination lawsuits achieved in 3 years. The partnership between Whitmore Industries and Thomson Analytics will proceed as planned, she announced. Tomorrow's press conference will include discussion of these reforms as part of our commitment to inclusive business practices. She gathered her documents, sliding them back into her leather portfolio with the same precision she'd used to extract them. But let me be absolutely clear about something. Margaret's voice carried across the ballroom one final time. This contract now includes additional performance metrics, diversity hiring goals, supplier diversity requirements, pay equity audits. Your AI integration will be tied directly to your social progress. Bradley found his voice. What does that mean exactly? It means Thomson Analytics will monitor Whitmore Industries' diversity practices as closely as we monitor your supply chain efficiency. Fail to meet inclusion targets, and our systems automatically reduce optimization until you correct course. The elegance of the solution was breathtaking. Margaret had weaponized the very technology that Whitmore Industries needed for survival, turning it into an enforcement mechanism for social justice. Your algorithms will literally work better when your company becomes more inclusive, she explained. Higher diversity scores unlock better AI performance. It's a feedback loop that makes discrimination economically impossible. Jason Chen laughed with genuine admiration. That's brilliant. You've made bias unprofitable. Exactly. Margaret smiled. The future belongs to companies that embrace all talent, not just the talent that looks like their founding families. She walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on marble that had witnessed the collision between old power and new possibility. Mrs. Whitmore, she called over her shoulder. Your husband's plane lands in 8 hours. I suggest you spend that time preparing to explain how tonight's events will actually strengthen your company in the long run. The hotel manager rushed to hold the door. Miss Thompson, is there anything else we can do to make this right? Yes. Margaret paused in the doorway. Next year's charity gala should focus on supporting minority-owned businesses, real partnerships, not just charity, investment, not just donations. Absolutely. We'll make it happen. Margaret stepped into the elevator, her reflection multiplied in its mirrored walls. The blood stain on her blazer had dried, becoming a badge of honor rather than a mark of humiliation. As the doors closed, she could hear the ballroom erupting in conversation, phones buzzing with calls from reporters, board members, and crisis management consultants. The story would dominate business news for weeks, but Margaret had already moved beyond tonight's drama. Her mind was calculating the implementation timeline for the new discrimination monitoring systems, planning integration with existing corporate AI platforms, designing the future where bias became technologically impossible. The elevator descended toward ground level, carrying with it the architect of a new kind of corporate accountability, one measured not just in quarterly profits, but in human dignity preserved and systemic change achieved. Outside, Manhattan glittered with the lights of a city that had just witnessed power redefined, not through violence or vengeance, but through the quiet precision of intelligence applied to justice. Margaret Thompson had turned humiliation into transformation, proving that the best revenge is a system so elegant that it makes discrimination self-defeating. 6 months later, Manhattan Business Journal. The headline read, Thompson Protocol Transforms Corporate America, How One Night Changed Everything. Margaret Thompson stood at her corner office window, 47 floors above Manhattan, watching the city pulse with the rhythm of reinvention. The scar on her cheek had faded to a thin white line barely visible unless you knew where to look. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Thomson Analytics had grown 45% since the Whitmore incident. Fortune 500 companies lined up to implement her discrimination monitoring systems, not from altruism, but from pure economics. The data was undeniable. Diverse companies using Thomson's AI outperformed homogeneous competitors by an average of 32%. Ma'am? Her assistant appeared in the doorway. Harvard Business School called again. They want to add the Whitmore case study to their required curriculum. Margaret smiled. Tell them yes, but I want to review their teaching materials first. The Whitmore Foundation had become an unlikely success story. Their diversity initiatives attracted top talent previously excluded from elite philanthropic circles. Corporate partnerships with minority-owned businesses generated innovations that old money networks had never imagined. Ashley Whitmore, now studying social justice communications at Columbia, managed their social media with genuine engagement rather than performative charity theater. Margaret's secure phone chimed. Richard Whitmore Sr. appeared on the video call, his face relaxed in a way that suggested genuine transformation rather than corporate obligation. Margaret, the Q3 numbers just came in. The AI integration exceeded projections by 18%. But more importantly, our employee satisfaction scores are the highest in company history. Diverse teams make better decisions, Richard. Your algorithms are simply reflecting human reality. Vivian wanted me to tell you something. Richard's voice carried notes of pride and humility mixed together. She's speaking at the National Urban League Conference next month. About accountability and growth. Margaret nodded. Vivian Whitmore had surprised everyone, including herself. The bias training had evolved into genuine education. The $5 million NOACP donation had become an ongoing partnership. The woman who had struck a black CEO in racist fury now mentored young women of color entering nonprofit leadership. People could change. Systems could evolve. But only when accountability carried real consequences. Margaret ended the call and returned to her computer, where she was reviewing the latest Thompson Protocol implementations. Over 300 companies had adopted the integrated bias monitoring systems. Discrimination complaints had dropped by 67% across participating organizations, not because problems disappeared, but because they were addressed before escalating to legal crises. Her calendar reminded her of tonight's commitment, keynote speaker at the Women in Technology Leadership Summit. The irony wasn't lost on her. 6 months ago, she'd been mistaken for catering staff. Tonight, she'd addressed 2,000 executives about the future of inclusive innovation. The speech was already written, but Margaret added one final section. The most powerful technology isn't artificial intelligence or quantum computing. It's the systematic elimination of human prejudice from decision-making processes. When we remove bias from hiring, promotion, and partnership decisions, we unlock cognitive diversity that drives exponential growth. She paused, remembering the moment when Vivian Whitmore's diamond ring had drawn blood. The humiliation that could have destroyed her had instead become the catalyst for industry transformation. Margaret picked up her phone and opened a new social media post. 6 months ago, I was assaulted at a charity gala for being a black woman in a space where people assumed I didn't belong. Tonight, that same foundation will host their annual celebration of minority business partnerships. Real-life stories like this remind us that touching stories of change are possible when we demand accountability. These black stories and life stories show us that intelligence always defeats ignorance, but only when we're brave enough to use our power for systemic change. She attached photos. The original viral video of her assault, the signed partnership agreement, the recent Harvard Business School case study, and an image from last week's Whitmore Foundation board meeting. Now 60% women and people of color. The post went viral within hours. Comments poured in from executives sharing their own discrimination experiences, students analyzing the business strategy, and entrepreneurs requesting Thompson Protocol implementations for their companies. Margaret's story had become more than personal vindication. It was proof that preparation could overcome prejudice, that strategic thinking could defeat systemic bias, and that individual courage could create institutional change. As she prepared to leave for tonight's speaking engagement, Margaret reflected on the evening that changed everything. She had walked into that gala as a successful CEO. She walked out as an architect of corporate transformation. What would you have done in Margaret's position? Share this story if you believe intelligence should always triumph over ignorance. Comment below with your own experiences of workplace discrimination. Your voice matters in creating change. Subscribe for more stories of strategic activism and corporate accountability. Together, we can build a business world where everyone belongs. Help us reach 1 million shares to spread this message of systematic change through individual courage.